Hey, I'm Jay, and I've got something to say about assembling HIPS polystyrene minis. So you can see here what a sample instructions look like. Archon has moved to all digital, so there's PDFs. I mean, you could always print it out, but they're not printing manuals for all of these, which also means that they can possibly get updated and fixed for retail release if there's a typo or something. So you can see we're gonna be working on this Armored Warrior, which is like an elf in a wood golem suit. And the first step is to assemble D2, D4, and D1. I'm going to start with D1 and D4, and then D2. So you can see there's printing right on the sprue. Maybe you can't see that there's printing. There's printing right on the sprue that says D1 here, and D2 right there. So you have a couple ways. I'm kicking the camera, sorry about that. So you have a couple ways to go about this. I personally like to get as close as I can and snip, but you could certainly snip out here, and then when you get the whole piece off, clean it up. So then you can pick the whole piece up, and then you can get a better angle. And I'm not looking at the camera right now, so hopefully that's showing up okay. No, I'm way off camera. Okay, so you can get it real close like that, and then set your two pieces that you're going to assemble aside. So same thing here. You can either clip way out here, and then once you get it off the sprue, get a little closer, or I like to just get as close as I can right off the bat, as flush as I can. And then you're still going to have a little cleanup to do. So, like, I've got a little scratchy bit right there. So I can either go through here with my nippers and I can just scratch it up and clean it off, or you can take your scalpel or utility knife. Pro tip: buy scalpels. They come with a lot of extra blades and they're cheaper and they're sharper. And you can just either use the back of the blade to kind of scrape the nubs off, or you can slice the nubs off. GW makes a metal scraper tool that does that. But let me get the other pieces all ready to glue and cleaned up. So, oh man. Okay. So I've actually refilled this with methyl ethyl ketone, but I've got plastic cement here. I like the brush-on kind. They make some with a regular like applicator tip, like you would squeeze out of a tube. But basically, you take your glue and you apply it to all of the seams that are going to match up on both sides. You might need extra. And then Archon's really good about these just fitting together like a puzzle piece. Right? You can't even see where those seams are on this one. And then you repeat. So, got my next piece. I'm going to apply glue to all the seams and the mating surface. And then I'm going to apply glue to all of the seams. And you may have to do this multiple times to keep it wet, depending on how big your pieces are. And then hopefully everything just snaps together. You might need to give it a little squeeze. If you have a gap, if you have an egregious gap, like you can still see the line there, but that's not too bad. But like right there, I have a little bit of a gap. So you can just re-wet it with this real runny liquid stuff. If you don't get the goopy like toothpaste tube, you can just put some in there and it'll soak into the crack. And you just give it a second and then you squeeze it, and it dissolves the plastic, so it makes the plastic a little mushy, so that you have room to squeeze. If there's a little debris or someplace you didn't clean good or the mold warped, it'll make the plastic actually like mushy enough that it squishes together, and it'll fit even if there's not a perfect fit. Even if it doesn't go together like a puzzle piece. And then I just got to do her arms. So that's it. 6 pieces, a couple steps, everything fit together like a puzzle, and you have your completed Mini, and you can't see any seams. Now, some of the instructions are a little harder to follow. Some of the models are a little more complicated. So, like this guy here, every layer you can see was basically like putting a shell. So I built the inside layer, and then built this layer, and then built this layer, and then put this last little shell on the outside. So he was a lot more steps, but still really easy. I mean, it was just stacking shells, right? Just putting the 2 halves on. This monster was a little hard because you can see it's hard to tell the details until it's shaded. This is a flame skull, so there's a skull right here and just a bunch of swirly stuff. So putting this last top piece on was a little hard to understand what the instructions were telling me to do. So I actually did things out of order because it said to build it from the bottom up. And this is actually 2 pieces. So I put these 2 pieces together, and then instead of trying to seat this bottom piece on this bottom piece on this little stem, I had the whole thing to seat on both of these stems here. So, sometimes the instructions are a little harder than other times. More complicated, less complicated. But some of them are real easy, like this little fairy guy. 3 pieces, right? A front, a back, and then a spear on. Like, that's it. I mean, it probably could have been 2. Probably could have been 2 pieces, but they split the torso in half, so you can put her like breastplate and this leg on. After the fact. So the assembly complications are all over the place, but there's a few models that have sticking points, but for the most part it's pretty easy. It's pretty straightforward. I banged out. Don't look at the mess. Don't look at the mess. I banged out this whole plate of minis in 2 nights. So don't stress about it.